We're going bananas about Donkey Kong Bonanza.
The boy is finally back. We have a new moveset that's looking smooth, and there's quite a lot of lore lying under the surface here. I'm used to Nintendo's gameplay first, story last approach, but it seems like we're getting a little more world building than usual with this game. The opening cutscene establishes that we're far away from DK Isle. As DK enters the mine, there's a new Donk City logo on the boxes, as well as the famous girders from the same place. As Voidco appears to take the isle down under, we see a lit skyline in the distance. Could it be? Things get even more apparent when a certain someone shows up on the Korean website for the game in a leak.
We'll get into that, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the city in the distance is in fact the famous New Donk City.
This city has always been in the franchise, but it took center stage in Mario Odyssey. It had a mayor, overworked businessmen, and most importantly, Donkey Kong references.
You know, all the speculation that I had done for what would become Bonanza feels a little bit silly in retrospect.
We were also collectively gaslit that Nintendo didn't really care about Donkey Kong anymore, that we didn't see the bright neon sign in NDC. They were literally like, hey, we're making a Donkey Kong game. We said, nah, Nintendo was forgotten about Donkey Kong. This place is hallowed ground now. Walking back through it, I'm looking at all the groundwork they were laying for Donkey Kong's return.
The question remains though, is the content within Mario Odyssey a direct map of things to come, or just a random collection of Easter eggs?
What we've seen of Bonanza so far might point us in the direction of where the Donkey Kong world is headed in terms of storytelling, lore, and character inclusions.
Before we get into that, however, we have to look into the past. Why?
Because I want mid-rolls on this video.
I mean, it's also because the city has a history as long as the franchise itself.
It all starts in Donkey Kong Arcade. We occupy a part of the city under construction. Mario defeats Donkey Kong, who's actually Cranky Kong, and captures him. Except, according to a 2023 interview with Miyamoto, this isn't New Donk City, it's New York, Brooklyn to be specific. This is why we've seen Mario depicted as an NYC-based plumber and media over the years.
That being said, I feel like the cities are sort of interchangeable. As with any Nintendo lore, you kinda have to accept the occasional plot hole or time warp.
The events of Donkey Kong Jr. happen in a nearby jungle for the first two stages before Mario takes Donkey Kong away on a helicopter. It's described simply as Mario's hideout, but it looks pretty sinister and they crossed a body of water to get there.
What is that, like the Super Mario equivalent of Rikers?
After DK Jr. ends, we can assume that when DK escaped, they didn't go too far based on the later entries in the series happening in the New Donk area as well. Donkey Kong 3 happens in a greenhouse somewhere, but the greenhouse is huge. Perhaps it was inspired by the New York Botanical Garden in the Bronx. I would say it's a safe bet to assume we're back in the same overall setting of the Donkey Kong arcade series. After Jr. freed him and took him back into the woods, you gotta imagine Donkey Kong commutes into the city to terrorize the humans every now and then.
You know, it's starting to make sense how Cranky got his namesake.
As DK moved from the arcade to the Game Boy, New York City is traded in for the simple name of Big City. It has much of the same design elements, though now we have a world map to clue us in on the details of the area. We can see a lot of the buildings are modeled after the real New York, forming that connection with the arcades in Odyssey. The forest where Jr. gave chase to Mario is nearby too. Spoiler warning for a 30-year-old game. The end has Mario setting off into the Mushroom Kingdom, which seems to border the locations of this game. Now we're not sure how it's all laid out on a map, because you chase Donkey Kong into an ocean, onto an airplane, through an iceberg and desert, all in the same adventure, so we're not sure exactly how close the Mushroom Kingdom is to New Donk. If we're to believe the Odyssey world map is the new canon, New Donk is pretty far away from the Mushroom Kingdom, so did they hop continents in the events of Donkey Kong 94?
Truth be told, I doubt Nintendo cared about the consistency of the World Atlas in the ripe year of 1994, but the essence of what they're trying to say here is noteworthy.
The big picture is that the Mushroom Kingdom is within reach of the general area where Mario chased DK and Pauline around. The next time we see this city is in Donkey Kong Land. The final world is Big Ape City, which has been taken over by the Kremlings. Yet again, we see similar elements of the original city Mario and Cranky duked it out in. In fact, we have confirmation through the instruction booklet. Travel by Zeppelin to Donkey Kong's favorite stomping ground, Big City. The sight of that familiar skyline might bring back fond memories, but don't waste your time sightseeing when there are Kremlings around. Funny that they interchanged the Donkey Kong Land and DK94 names for the same city here.
So it seems that in some time period in between Donkey Kong Arcade and Mario Odyssey, this same city was over overrun with Kremlings. Perhaps you can make the argument that the Kong saving the city is what led to the streets being named after them, but there's a particular street name that makes this theory fall flat.
The next time we see the city is in Donkey Konga 2 of all games. DK and friends can be seen at the edge of their island looking out at a skyline. DK performs music in this city, and look, there's those famous red girders again. This totally fits in with Odyssey's realization of New Donk City. But you know what's even more weird? This backdrop shows the skyline with some mountains to the side. Now if we look over here at Bonanza, DK finds himself in a mountainous region far off the shores of DK Isle. And what's even more interesting than that is if you look at the brochure for New Donk, it says the nighttime skyline shines from any angle. Mountains, near a lit up city, or you're putting the pieces together, Jack.
Who knew we'd get such an important lore drop from the Donkey Kong Smash Mouth crossover game? With all that backdrop, let's look at Mario Odyssey's version of New Donk and use it as a guide to see what we might find in Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Immediately as we enter the proper version of the kingdom, we're greeted with some of those famous girders. Just like the real-life New York, NDC is always under construction. Now obviously this city is a big homage to the original Donkey Kong with plenty of imagery to convey that. What's more pertinent to our discussion today, however, is which elements of the rare games they make reference to here. As we enter the streets, we can see a Times Square-like setup where the festival is being advertised, as well as all the arcade-era art on display. The first street we go down is Cranky Avenue. And wouldn't you know, Cranky has already been spotted in the new game. Squawks Park is close by with its own version of Squawks with Talkatoo, a bird that helps you uncover secrets in the same way Squawks was used in the retro games.
Maybe he'll serve the same sort of purpose in Bonanza.
Cranky Avenue intersects with Dixie Street, and we know Dixie has had a bit of a renaissance between Tropical Freeze, Mario Kart Tour, Lego, and the theme park.
I imagine she'll make some sort of appearance in the new game.
Diddy's Mart is on the corner of this Times Square-like area, which is a nice nod to his place in the Kong family and overall prominence in the series.
If Diddy Kong is not in Bonanza, there will be unrest in the streets.
Walking down Dixie Street, we see signs of shops that reference other parts of the series. Dixie Theater is another chance for them to reference the popular heroine. There's a restaurant sign for Tiny's Pierogies? Next to Tiny's restaurant, we can enter a building to do an RC car race, which may or may not be a callback to Tiny Kong's races with Minicar and DK64. Espresso has espresso, and while we haven't seen that particular bird in Bonanza, we have seen the species itself. Candy Kong has a cafe in the corner. Dixie Street is also where some major construction is happening, giving us a whole area of 25M girders to play around with. This is kind of off topic, but I wish this part of the game was a little more vertical. It would be so sick to have a 3D version of 25M come to life to play around with. Come on, Nintendo, think! These girders are tastefully peppered in throughout the city, though. For a lighter reference, we have banana bagels, because the devs didn't have the courage to call it Bluster's Bagels. Following Cranky Avenue, we next intersect with Espresso Street. So not only does this ostrich have drip, he also has a coffee shop and a street named after him. That's big ballin'. Cranky Avenue ends at a crossroads with Ramby and Radley Street. Now Ramby has been resilient in the series, making appearances in the retro games and the theme park. But we also know that he's in Bonanza in some form thanks to the cranky conversation and his theme being used in the game. Banana Bagels has another location with a rooftop dining area where we can see barrels. Very, Kong-coded. What's interesting about them is that they're always in a pair, kind of like the bongo controller that was used in this studio's debut game. Ramby Street intersects with K. Rool Avenue? It's interesting that K. Rool would be the only other character with an avenue named after them.
Streets are usually named to bring honor or recognize contribution, and one of the two major streets aren't named after Diddy, Funky, or another animal buddy. It's K. Rool.
At the time of Odyssey's release, these all seemed like cute little Easter eggs and nothing more, but now that we've seen some of Bonanza, it almost seems like a roadmap of sorts. We've seen Cranky, Ramby, and Espresso's species so far. With all the other rare era references on display in just the first chunk of the marketing cycle, I think they were doing more than cute little nods to the Donkey Kong franchise, especially with the boxes of Bonandium going back to New Donk. They're definitely building a connection here.
If we're gonna get real nutty, we can even relate it to the leak that happened from Nintendo of South Korea. Now, if you somehow have been watching Donkey Kong videos online and this hasn't been spoiled for you, feel free to leave, but it's time we talk about it.
This image leaked, which seems to be an alternate render for the box art. What we can make of this initially is that this little girl bears a striking resemblance to Pauline. That's about all we know so far about the matter, but given the references in New Donk City and the direct links they have to Bonanza, we definitely have something to talk about.
Next time we'll tackle Pauline's history, her recent resurgence, and the mysteries of this new character.